Welcome everybody to the Brain Friendly channel. My name is Relmi Damiano and I am the co-founder of the About My Brain Institute. The aim of this channel is to present information that can help leaders and organizations become brain friendly. Leadership has changed and we can all certainly develop our personal leadership. Understanding how the brain works is essential in this process. We now know that better brains create better leaders and workplaces. Today's session is very exciting because we will be discussing how to incorporate neuroscience research into learning and development, and also how technology can be used to create better mental, emotional, and peak physical performance. I'm delighted to introduce you to the future of learning. Our presenter is Katharine McLennan, and she is interviewed by the president of the About My Brain Institute in Asia Pacific, our wonderful Garry Mills. I've personally known Katharine for many years, and her knowledge never ceases to amaze me. Katharine is an executive coach with the About My Brain Institute. She specializes in talent development, strategy, neurocoaching, and psychotherapy. Katharine has a career that spans corporate strategy, execution, and leadership. She's a highly sought-after facilitator for executive teams in the integration of strategy, operations, team dynamics, and self-transformation. Katharine's corporate roles have included Head of Strategy and HR for the Federal Government's Export Finance Australia, Vice President of People and Culture of Cochlear, Head of QBE Global Leadership Academy, and Executive General Manager, Talent and Business Unit HR for the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Her ideas on the future of work and leadership culture and HR transformation are provocative and inspiring. I'm really looking forward to this interview since this is a topic that affects us all. Now, if you would like to ask any questions, feel free to contribute in the comments section below. We will aim to answer as we go or by the end of the session. Over to you, Garry.
Thank you, Relmi. I'm very excited to be here with Katharine too. Great introduction. Geez, you've done so much, Katharine. Fantastic. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for this morning, wherever you are. It might be morning, evening, maybe you're up in the middle of the night, but you've got an action-packed 50-odd minutes, 55 minutes, hearing the wisdom, the ancient wisdom and the new stuff from Katharine, all about the future of learning. So welcome, Katharine. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Garry. I've been looking forward to having this channel. I think it's so cool talking about the future of learning.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait. It's reading your blog recently, obviously, very insightful, and we'll touch on that. Absolutely. And we'll get into that brain of yours. Maybe you might pick mine a little bit. We'll see what comes out the other end. But obviously, as Relmi said, everybody out there, pop your questions up as we go along. We'll include those in as we go. But let's kick off. I know you want to get into the mind of Katharine and the future of learning. Now, Katharine, the blog you wrote recently for the About My Brain Institute, you talked about Back to the Future for learning. And I'm a huge fan of the Back to the Future franchise movies. So I'd love to hear, or everybody I'm sure would love to hear, what do you mean by going back to the future of learning?
I love that movie. 1985 it came out. That's when I graduated from high school. And that was definitely the industrial age of learning. And it's funny because I used the Back to the Future in my daughter's 21st celebration. And it's funny. It's funny to go to that. I still wonder whether we've gotten to that future yet. We're certainly doing the Jetson thing right now.
Elon Musk, when's he going to bring out those hover cars?
That's it.
So the future of learning, or going back to the future, what you talk about ancient wisdom in a lot of the article and combining that with technology and that sort of thing. But I'd really like to just dig into what is ancient wisdom? What are we talking about there?
Yeah, look, we are, as a human society, we're forgetters or forgetterers, I think. I never know how to say that. I have been studying ancient philosophy and all kinds. And when I say ancient philosophy, from the trend of Buddhism to Vedic philosophy.
Okay, we've got a little bit of a glitch there. Catherine, can you hear me?
Yep.
There we go. We're back. It's not the best picture of you, but I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. So when the ancient philosophy, I'm talking about the Vedic philosophy, the Buddhist philosophy, the Christian philosophy, the Judaic philosophy, and even the new ones that are arising. There was so much wisdom in the pure form of those religions, and I think we have forgotten them. And when I see learning contexts posted on LinkedIn and everybody gets excited about them, I have a giggle, because so many of them actually were formed in that society. But we just keep forgetting, and we don't read those ancient philosophy, and therefore we don't learn about the mind. Yeah. Is Garry in? No. Let's see if he's back in. I can't just riff if I'm on. Okay. You want me to just? Okay. You just want me to go? Can you hear me? Oh, good. Okay, guys, that's funny. That's, the future of learning in terms of technology. You got to laugh and be totally flexible. It reminds me of when I was actually presenting back in, goodness gracious, I think the 1990s. Thanks, Bronwyn. In the 1990s, I was presenting on a transparency. I don't know if you young guys know even what a transparency is. And every time I presented since then, and I think that was back in 1990, when we were Xeroxing, and ever since that time I presented then, over the last 25, 30 years, technology still doesn't work. So no matter what the advance of technology is, but we certainly rely on it in the future of learning, but we're always adapting, hence the Zoom and everything else like that. And yeah, so while we wait for Garry, I might tell you about some of the model. And there he is. So I might, you might put that presentation on, Rami. Thanks. When I'm talking in the Zoom, when I'm talking in the blog, one of the About My Brain Institute, the founder, Sylvias Model, came up with this great format, and I've been using it ever since to talk about the age we're in. And we are very, in terms of the Neuroleader imagination age, that's what I'm talking about, the future of learning. And you can see just broadly that when we were talking about the industrial age, when I first entered the workload, we were doing total quality management and everything else like that, which I'm going to get to in the next slide. But when we hit about 1995, I had just graduated from Stanford Business School. Talk about being in the first start of information age. One of my classmates actually founded eBay, and another one founded Hotmail. And you wonder where I was. Anyway, knowledge was power, but now that we're not into knowledge, we are definitely into the imagination age, and ideas are the power, and we are creators. That means we need to know how to create. That means we know how to be brain focused. And that means we don't know. And in fact, so many of the hundreds of executives that I have interviewed over so long, in 25 years, I can tell you 99.9% of them will confess to me at some point of working with them. They'll say, and I know when they're going to say it, they'll say, Katharine, I got to tell you something. I know what they're going to say. They'll go, I don't know what I'm doing. And if you knew what you were doing, it would be last year plus or minus 5%. And it's not knowing is what makes this era so interesting. So Rami, you can take that slide off for now. And Garry's back.
Yes, don't know what happened there, Catherine. It's it may have had an alien ship fly over the top or something. I have no idea. But I did catch the end of that, and obviously that's something you talk about in your blog, is about that leaders not having any idea what they're doing and what they're supposed to do. And I guess from my own experiences coaching and and working with teams and things like that, I find out I'm finding the same experiences. And I guess when we talk about some of the trends of that you talk about in your paper on, first one, neuroscience. Let's jump into neuroscience, because obviously about My Brain Institute, that's what we're all about, helping people develop themselves through neuroscience and neurobiology. But how is neuroscience going to help us find that place we need to be, get that understanding of what's the future of learning look like, let alone the future of life on Earth?
Isn't that great? And again, ancient philosophy tells us a lot about what the future of the Earth is going to be. But if Relmy puts a slide up that I've got up on my screen, terrific. Funny enough, my undergraduate was in neuroscience and history. So it really tells you the integrative mind. I then went on, anyway, it doesn't matter my career, but I'm telling you that the brain has always been a fascination for all humanity, all the way back to, you look at the Aristotle writes, the Plato's writes, and then way back before that. But now that we've got the machines, the functional MRI, our society goes, oh, then it's okay. And we can be able to see the brain. And you can see here, we're starting to use that science to prove to us in learning what we've actually always known since the ancient times, Garry.
Yeah, and what is it that we've known since ancient times, Katharine, if you want to summarize that?
Sure. We know what our grandmothers always used to know, that our learning can only be done in the rested state, in the light, in the sunlight, in the community of and now that we can see the brains light up when those conditions exist, the nutrition, the exercise, the physiology, we can see that we connect with other minds, brains. And that energy is extraordinary in the learning.
Absolutely. And coming on that, the brains talking to each other, I remember the first time I ever came across that was a YouTube video of Daniel Goleman speaking somewhere, and he was talking about how that was first discovered. And I did a bit of research, and it looks like it was the real deal, where a monkey in a lab they've scanned the monkey's brain, and every time it lifted its arm, a particular part of its brain lit up, and then one day the arm wasn't moving, and the monkey's brain was lighting up, and they realised it was one of the scientists had an ice cream or something, and every time they raised their arm, the monkey's brain lit up in the same spot. So the monkey wasn't actually lifting its arm, but it was replicating what was happening to the person in front of them. So that was where that brain-to-brain communication sort of came to my attention, awareness, and then I obviously looked into it a lot more.
Yeah, and the mirror brain. Relmy, you can take that slide off, because I think a couple of people can't read it, but we can certainly make it available to people after however you do it. Relmy's the miracle worker in all things, so she can read it. But the mirroring in brains are remarkable. We know so little about that. But leaders, your followers in leadership can pick up so much about your own physiology. We now understand that when you're having what Daniel Goleman coined an amygdala hijack, even though you've got the suppressed, I'm just fine, and we know what the acronym for fine is. We won't go into that. Then your leaders pick it up by your heart rate, their heart rate goes up. It picks up by blood pressure, their blood pressure goes up. And they don't understand why they are so stressed when the leader looks so calm. And that mirror brain has a lot to do with learning and our stress levels that we're in society. We can't learn in a beta brainwave state. We can't learn with the exhaustion and the 18 hours and the constant addiction to this.
Yeah. On do not disturb. I do that all the time on this, so it doesn't interrupt me when I'm trying to actually do something, whether that's learning or doing some work. Do not disturb. And then I don't have to worry about it. And the only notifications I have on my phone are the text message and ringing. I turn off all the social media notifications. That's why I'm hopeless getting back to people sometimes, because it's so distracting, isn't it?
Oh, it's so distracting. I mean, we are distracted. Like one of my teachers, and I have a lot of spiritual teachers who help me with the ancient knowledge, he said, Katharine, you are distraction. You are the epitome of distraction. And so I'm actually learning to undistract, that's a verb for you, undistract my mind by spending, and COVID's been fantastic for this, by the way. My dogs are amazing teachers, as is the outside. And I know I'm just learning so much in the quiet times of COVID.
Yeah, and actually, I ran a workshop just the other day for some people, a group coaching workshop, and one of the participants said that working from home has helped her walk the dog in the morning. Is sort of setting the day with the kids. We go for a walk with the dog, and then the work gets done, and then at the end of the day, it's sort of a disconnect from work back into the home life in terms of taking the dog for a walk again. I mean, the dogs gets 2 walks a day. It's like they probably created COVID. I don't know, dogs, because they had all this company at home for so long. But it's creating those boundaries, whether it's working from home or in the office, isn't it? And when we're studying and learning, we need to have these disconnects to separate the day, don't we?
Well, it's funny. I've got a little bit of a different opinion. I do get that in rest, but we, the family, in the clans of our cave society, were teachers. The elders were teachers, but the kids were teachers. And I was thinking, get down on the floor with your kindergarten and learn how to paint with your hands, and go back to that creative state that before we were educated, it was everywhere. It wasn't the linear education that we had. And so that's another way to go back to the future.
Oh, absolutely, and yeah, I'd much rather be sitting down painting and playing with crayons and things like that than trying to work through algebra or something like that. So, or write a report. So yeah, it's certainly lifelong learning isn't just every few weeks I do a course, is it? It's just that whole daily experience of lifelong learning, isn't it? That's how our brain develops, isn't it?
That's where it is, and people often use the word raise your consciousness levels, raise that, and everybody thinks, I don't know if everybody thinks okay, go to Byron Bay, but that's not what it is. It's the ability to develop awareness of your thinking, develop awareness of your emotions. So you can do that right now as you're listening. Notice the distraction in the, for your audience, the audience minds. Notice the distraction. Notice how much percentage is with me, as opposed to what you're going to think about anything. And being able to draw it back is our ancient wisdom. It's being able to draw it back to the present. And that is extraordinary for learning.
Great. We've got thanks, Katharine. We've got a question here from Ricardo over in South America. What are your recommendations to have brain-friendly teachers?
That's a great question. I actually think, and what we're seeing in primary education and some secondary education and very few universities is a respect for how the brain likes to learn. And those brain teachers are learning about the brain. They're learning about how it works. And guess what? They're teaching the young kids how it works. And when you see diagrams about how it works, the brain starts working better. It's like getting an instruction manual. And our brains are fascinated with our brains, almost like looking at Zoom when we get really fascinated with our face. Our brains are fascinated. And it's really important to have teachers that understand that, because it's not the linear thinking that we've shoved down, and particularly with artificial intelligence and that kind of thing. They're going to do a lot of that rote learning. We're not going to need that. We're going to need to go back to kindergarten, essentially, with the way we think and develop the creativity.
Yeah, great. So if I'm a teacher, and regardless of what level I'm teaching, we don't have to get into some detail of what I'm actually going to be doing. But if I said to you, look, I want to be a brain-friendly teacher, when I step into the classroom tomorrow, how can I start developing that? What can I do? What's one step I can do to develop?
Without sounding like an advertisement, but I will. Sylvias Model, and I'm just going to advance, because some of you said you could see the slides, but perhaps, Rami, you could put that on. Sylvias Model is fantastic, and the way she talks about performance, collaboration, innovation, and agility, that's what the opposite of linear learning is. And a teacher that comes to a course like this not only learns about those characteristics, but they also learn about the part of the brain that drives those characteristics. And I think that's the example of teachers and their knowledge, because if you think about teachers, and also going back to that mind state, when a teacher is in that mind state that is absolutely in the present, the connection between the teacher and the student is extraordinary, and they track each other, and the total learning backwards and forwards.
Yeah, fantastic. And look, if we look at that, think about some of the elements up there, or the pillars, the curiosity and imagination. They're sort of traditionally been left for when you're doing art or music or things like that. Are they the sort of things, the innovation sort of pillars, the things that we need to bring into everything that we're learning into, whether it's mathematics, whether it's physics, whether it's how to tie your shoelaces? Are they all things that are really important for today in the new age we're living in?
Oh my God! So, but people ask me, what's the effect of AI and learning? I'm going to lose my job. Well, it turns out that you're not going to lose your job if you can think new thoughts. If you can think thoughts that the artificial intelligence algorithms they're based on our own thoughts. That's how they work. So if you can think new thoughts, we're going to need you. And you need to get back into your imagination and curiosity. You need to learn how to slow down those brain waves and get more of the serotonin that so much of our society doesn't make, and get more of the growth hormones and get more of the delta brain waves that carry that intuition, which everybody thinks are women's prerogative. But it turns out you can train your brain to have intuition, which is the new ideas, which is the connection. And that's important.
Yeah, fantastic. And so computers and AI and that sort of thing, they're only replicating aha moments that have already been had by a human. They can't have their own. Is that right?
Well, they can iterate the algorithms really, really quickly, and they can see patterns that we haven't been able to see. You think about the chess game and how fast they can see patterns way before we can, but that is based on how chess works. And so what if we came up with a new chess that was completely third dimensional, that you did in the space, on Elon Musk's space thing? And Einstein came and looked at time and space, and then you developed the whole chess pattern based on that. And that's the kind of thing that you start imagining that you can't plug in yet to the algorithms. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it's I'm terrible at chess anyway, so I think even the most basic program would beat me. But then again,
we've
got to practice, don't we? If I don't practice, of course I'm going to be hopeless at it. That's it. I wanted to talk a little bit about obviously COVID, working from home, the way that a lot of we're all just so busy. We're trying to teach people processes, legislation, policy, technical stuff in the workplace. We're trying to teach kids a lot of there's a lot of challenges in the schools getting information across. So micro learning. This is a bit like a chicken and the egg question. What came first, micro attention or micro learning?
That's so great. I was reflecting on TED Talks, right? And they were all the rage. I say were all the rage because they're 17 minutes long. And the last TED Talk that anybody saw was Brene Brown's on vulnerability, because no one can deal with 17 minutes. And so micro-learning has come about, which is 30, 40 seconds, sometimes 3 minutes. But we're so exhausted by the computer. We're so exhausted. We need to get away from the computer. We need to learn from nature. We need to learn from the stillness of the mind. We need to learn from each other. I just had my first meeting in the city, and because our city is opened up, and I was assessing an executive for a CEO position, and I had met him on Zoom, and I was sort of not overly impressed by his strategic thinking, his imagination, his ability to communicate. When I met him in person, oh my goodness, he was amazing. And half of it is the energy we created together, because we were just we're riffing on the future of banking. I know that sounds awful, but future. And what that means, and the connection for us was extraordinary. So
Yes.
the computer, microlearning, just to give you a little bit of context to play with, and then go spend time in nature and people in your own quiet mind.
Yeah, amazing what you'll discover, isn't it? Good point there by Alison too. She talked about there's a place for everyone in the future workplace with the growth mindset and agility, which is obviously what we talk about at the About My Brain Institute. And a hunger, I love the word hunger. We've got to get hungry to learn. We've got to get hungry to change to what we change what we need to actually to move forward in today's imagination world, isn't it? New skills and learning.
Well, okay, this is where I get to harp on current HR performances. I love HR. That's where it's no longer called HR. It's called people. Imagine that. Because we're not robots and we're not in the industrial age. However, when we got into the information age, we went crazy. GE started us. And GE is a fantastic company, but it taught us about performance management. To me, that's an oxymoron. It taught us about the 9 box, which is, for you that don't know the 9 box, it's performance versus potential. And when we put people in boxes and we don't see their potential, which is an ancient teaching, guess what? They don't see their potential either. So, and the teacher or the leader doesn't see their potential. And so one of the quotes I always quote is, again, going back to ancient philosophy, is when you greet somebody in the Zulu language, and pardon any South Africans that are going to correct me, but I like the concept anyway. You say sawubona, and the person says back sikona, and the sawubona is I see you and your potential, and the sikona back is because you've seen me and my potential, I exist in this world. And I think with the oxymoron of performance management in the 9 box, we have not seen the potential and even seen 80, 85, 90, 95% of our employees. That is not learning. No,
that's right. And I'll get, Ricardo's got a great question there, but I was just going to say, I work a lot with government, and when they get in the room about leadership and that sort of thing, as soon as we mention, and I don't get into this as a topic because it just drives you nuts, as soon as I mention the word performance management, you just see deflation.
Well, it's an oxymoron. I mean, performance is about, like, how do you expand I'm going to go Byron Bay again. How do you expand your consciousness? How do you tap into the connection of other people? How do you get out of your chicken coop, that we're all in if you run around the workspace? We're getting better at that. But how do you get out of your individual learning? Our society has been individually based. And when you look at long-term adult development, the next stage after that is the collective. It's not the tribal collective, it's the collective emergence from how we learn from each other. And essential.
Yeah. Is that like a take on a systems thinking? So rather than just the world according to me and my own, we don't intentionally become selfish or inwards focused, but a lot of the time, that's where we end up, particularly when we're in survival mode and just trying to get by. And so is that systems thinking from a human context? We're getting all these brains together to not only solve problems, but also improve the future for ourselves.
Yeah, back in 2005, I had the pleasure of going and seeing, I think it was 2005, maybe 4, Peter Senge and Betty Sue Flowers and I want to say Otto Scheimer, and there's one other, and they were launching their book Presence. But guess where they launched it? Outside on a beautiful island outside of Boston with Native Americans teaching us how to unthink. And that book Presence was an early indicative, and yet, taking us back to the future. And we seem to keep forgetting it because our learning doesn't come from rote learning, not at all.
Yeah. That's just packing stuff in there. Recall.
It's packing stuff in, and everybody says learn by failure. And I have to laugh because in every corporate I've been in, when you fail, you're fired. However, that's actually a good thing for you, because I actually think the expansion of consciousness and the expansion of the ability to learn is when you quote unquote fail or you have a crisis in your life, be it personal or career future. And because everything collapses, it no longer understands the world and it has to rebuild itself.
Yeah.
And most people that are phenomenal learners you can ask them, where were their crisis points and where did their brain have to collapse in order to rewire?
Yeah, absolutely. And we did that a lot in when I was in the police force. A lot of the training was around putting people, particularly new police, through new experiences where generally they failed. They either came to a nasty end, like you see in the movies, or they might have failed in their outcome. But that's where you want them to learn and fail. Because they're programming their brain for those real life experiences that before they get out on the street and they've seen it. And do you think that we like the word judgment and failure when we talk about learning and not trying new things? Do you think those words, as soon as we hear failure, judgment, they've just been hijacked as these negative words about performance and how we learn?
Yeah, we're not machines like a factory. And I can remember in the Olympics, Allison is on the phone. She was with me at the Olympics. And for 4 years, and it actually comes from Len Leese's philosophy that the 28 to 32-year-old is extraordinary because they haven't been bent by politics and so-called corporate failure. And that 28 to 32 have been in the workforce, but they don't understand politics. They don't know they don't understand politics. And yet they don't know personal failure, and they have enough confidence to so what do the elders do? They back off and they let those guys learn, and they let those guys learn by failure. And it's like, Garry, it's like being on a what do they call that? Comes from somebody, I can't remember the name, but you're on the balcony as a leader and you're watching your people dance on the dance floor underneath you. And as they're dancing, you see that the champagne is coming down with the waiter, and you know they're going to make a mistake, like you guys see in the police force. And they stay in the balcony and let them make a mistake. But on the other hand, and this would absolutely be the police as well, when the leader looks on the balcony up to the chandelier that's shaking like crazy, they know instantaneously they got to get out of that balcony and save their people's lives. And that definition between what is real life and death and what is not is critical. And that's where Daniel Goleman's amygdala hijack comes in, and helping the brain see that it's not life and death so we can learn.
Yeah, and that's certainly been my experience, is understanding that your body you might be put in a new situation, in a learning environment, in a workplace environment, and you're asked to write a report, you're asked to do something that's you feel uncomfortable, you feel threatened. It can be life-threatening because that's the evolution, isn't it? And but at the end of the day, it's getting out. It's an oldie but a goodie. You got to get outside your comfort zone, don't you? And that's where the wisdom of the elders is so powerful, is because they've been there, they've understood it, and they can help guide you through that. Would you agree with that?
I'm going to call out Allison too, because there was three people from the Olympics that created a company called Sage Co. And it was about the elders' wisdom that we totally disregard. But here's the thing about the imagination age. The wisdom can come from the elders. And guess what? The wisdom can come from our 3-year-old. And the wisdom can particularly, I was just looking, one of the things I write about is the Generation Y, and that was 1981. They're born in 1981 through 1996. They're very interesting, and they're just in our workplace now. And you learn from them like there's no tomorrow. And it's extraordinary what they teach me. I don't know, Relmi, I think you're one of those. She's the one that runs that. I learned so much from Relmi. And then the new generation, which my daughter and son are in, is starting from 1997 to probably 2012. They're going to be, and that's Generation Z. They're in the workforce. They're starting to teach us. And there's even another one coming, and it's called Generation A. And they're going to be fantastic teachers too. I can't wait.
Back to the start of the alphabet. A bit like a license plate.
That's right. Back to the future.
Oh, that's great. Excellent. I've got there's a question there from Ricardo that popped up earlier. He asked, is the offer for Neuroleader 360 assessment, which was also incorporated in the platform, can it be used for teachers? Is there a
Absolutely. It can be used by people that have never worked before. It can be used by kids. It can be used by anyone. And I love the way that you get 360s always send fear down people's, like, oh my God, people are going to see me. And I tell leaders, well, they actually see you anyway. But the cool thing about the 360 here is what I love, and I'm just doing one right now, is not only your peers, not only your direct reports, not only your manager, but guess what? Your family and your friends. And I was thinking, for me, who's living by myself all of COVID, I think I'll ask my chemist and my grocery store manager, for how they see me. And the beautiful, why not?
Why not get that holistic? And that's the thing. Part of that learning is that, a big part of that learning is seeing you for what you are outside of yourself. And so many people, and I'm no different. I'm sort of a lot more comfortable with it now, but certainly I had a barrier up to finding out what do people really think of me. I don't want to ask because they might think I only ask the people who are going to tell me I'm great.
You know what one of my friends said to me the other day? He said, Katharine, do you know what people are thinking about you? And I said, John, no, what are they thinking about me? Fear, 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 stop of learning right there. And he goes, they're not. We're so like in our brain, but that's not true either. Especially we do see each other. We just have to remember to see each other. Yeah. And, that's the learning process. That's the awareness growth. Because so much of this is fear. Oh my God, what do I look like? Do I look, what if I say something in a meeting and everybody thinks it's stupid? And then, we're so much here that we can't see there. And there is where the wisdom, not the knowledge, the wisdom.
Get out of your own head.
Get out of your own head.
I saw a couple of comments there. Bronwyn got tricked by autocorrect. She's been able to correct the I don't even know how to pronounce Sageco or Sageco. Sageco, yeah, okay. Incredible support in the transition for older workers. So that's because not everybody, even when we talk about ancient wisdom and older workers and different generations, it's there's technology is there's people across all ages that are really savvy with technology, and also people who just cannot transition to the imagination age. It's a really big challenge, isn't it? So how do we guide those people along who are really, really petrified, or they just don't have the skills to be able to do it?
Well, I think I was looking at Allison and Phil, another friend of mine. Thank you, friends. Have added about the curiosity and the fact that we might live to 100. I was looking at the age demographics, and apparently it's coming down, the average age. And I think that is because of the stress and the high levels of adrenaline and cortisol that are killing our learning ability.
Yeah.
But it's the ability to really tap into those but it's not even the elders. I love what Phil said, which is the 24. It's like the 100-year-old. What do you say? It's the ability to say, "Hey, I'm going to live a long time. I hope." I just touched wood, and I hope I'm going to live a long time. And what is this retirement? There's no such thing as retirement. There's no such thing. And we will shrivel up. Our brains will shrivel up if we stop learning. And that transition part goes on entire life. In fact, I was like, Allison, I'm giving you a big plug. So, the work that Allison is CEO of in terms of Rise Smart is really extraordinary. It doesn't happen just until 65, 70. It goes on to how long we live. And it's fast. And they ought to be teachers of us, just as well as our preschool people.
Absolutely. And it's which is great. Well, one of the trends that you talked about in your recent blog was out with the old institutions. Obviously, COVID's created this situation where foreign students are restricted. It's gone to online learning. A lot of people can't even go to universities in their hometown. Then we've got colleges, obviously, and a lot of kids in secondary schools and primary schools have had to adjust to learning from home. How do you capture that in your thoughts about what does the future of that tertiary education look like for you?
It's funny, I'm just about, right after this, I'm about to lecture at Sydney University about how the brain works, and I'm definitely using about my brains. I just love for the brain to understand how the brain works, and they're going to be fascinating. I guarantee it. However, what I do see and what I'm starting to understand is, and I've done lots of facilitation for universities and went to the US and looked at them, and I think Harvard and those guys will survive. But look at what my 19-year-old who goes to University of New South Wales, you could hardly say he goes to the University of New South Wales. He hasn't been on campus for 2 years. But here's the thing, if you look at a matrix and you imagine on the vertical side is pay a lot, don't pay. And then on the X side is don't get assured a job, get assured a job. So here the traditional universities are pay a lot, and in the US it's killing people debt-wise, so a lot of them are not. And don't be assured of a job. Don't even be ready to get a job. And that's just going to die on the vine. I think our big institutions London School of Business and INSEAD and all those American schools and maybe Sydney, we don't know. Yeah. They'll survive. But we can't learn like that in university. That's not how we learn.
Yeah, okay. So what is it? So if I'm a university student or a higher education student, I want to learn a particular craft, a technical skill, or it could be philosophy, I don't know. 5 years' time, what am I going to be doing in your mind? What is it?
We don't know. And so, it's interesting. I had, when I was managing human resources, as it was called in CBA, I got together all the deans of the business schools in Sydney and got together about 12 executives. And I asked, what would you study if you had to study again? Because they all studied commerce, blah, blah, blah. And they did finance and that's what they studied almost around the block. And they all went around and they said, philosophy, political science, history, art, oh my goodness, music, oh my goodness. Why is that? And one of the issues with all of our tertiary institutions is they're teaching specialists. And we're not going to have a specialist society. Specialist is an information age kind of thing. We're going to have to go to integration. We don't know how to do integration. It goes back to your point, Garry, that we're going to have to learn to go to that systems integrative thinking. So many of us are specialists. That means we'll never really expand our ability to see the world. How's that?
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, it's a great point. And I see James has popped a comment up. Welcome, James. I know James from down in Melbourne. Great to see you online, mate. Traditional universities need to pivot like most businesses towards the new normal. Yeah,
absolutely. Can you imagine my son learning commerce and IT online for 2 years? What is that going to teach him? I mean, and what I was saying, I go back to that conversation we had with the deans, and all of the deans bar one, we were asking them, the second question I asked them was, they asked us, what do you need us to teach the university students so they're ready for CBA? And then I said, well, what do you think? And so they said all these things like Sarbanes-Oxley rule, the risk mitigation strategy framework, what is that? Black-Scholes model of derivative, la, 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 la. And I was like, yeah, that's great, but they can learn that here. I want you guys to learn how to think, how to collaborate, how to create. And, the UTS dean, who's still my all-time favorite dean, Roy Green of the business school, he's the one that got the building, the paper bag, they call it, built. He was talking about that. And then I got involved with UTS, and you can see in UTS that they have a course in business called Creative Intelligence. Go figure.
Yeah, goodness me, eh? That's great. I just a reminder for everybody out there, we've got about under 10 minutes left of this session. So if you've got any more questions, please keep popping them up. We'll do our best to get those to Katharine. And in terms of that, we talk about ancient wisdom, technology, the balance. Does this mean that the wisdom. We talk about the Instagram influencers. They've got their 1 million followers and they get on and do their little clips and do this. But is that what the people who've got all the wisdom need to do, or how do we actually transfer that knowledge and that understanding?
That's such a good question. I don't even know if I know the answer, which is a good sign that I'm in the imagination age. I mean, I'm in my 50s now, and I spend a lot of time with teachers that have really tapped into this ancient wisdom. I'm afraid that our kids who do not read, they do not read. They watch Instagram, they watch Netflix, and so do I, by the way. But I also and is really important. They don't read and they don't access the great novels of our day and the history. They don't read fiction. My goodness. And I worry about that society. I worry that they're going to be so technology literate, which is fantastic. But they'll and I'll just say one other example, Garry. When I was heading up people in culture change at Cochlear globally, again, I would hire anytime a biomedical engineer from an Australian university above any other university, because Australian university prepares you to work right away. But guess what? When they hit 28 and they need to start doing people management, they've got to stay an engineer, and they don't know how to integrate and think and understand people and create. They're phenomenal engineers, and a lot of them stay engineers.
In demand. Hey, they're the ones who go out and people do want to give them a job. No guarantees.
No guarantees. That's right.
Great. We've got a question up there on the screen if you'd like to answer that one, Katharine.
Do you think that good communication is affected by neurochemistry of the brain? Oh my goodness! Yes. When you have at some point, come to Sylvia's About My Brain course. But I've always understood, again, ancient philosophy, but now the science shows us that most of our communication, particularly at work, is in the beta brainwave state, which is often, if it gets too stressed and you're going passive, you're producing all kinds of, you're not connecting. You've got the adrenaline and cortisol effect. But as you slow your brainwave state, it goes even to delta, which you can get in sleep, but you can also train your brain. Guess what? It starts controlling like growth hormone and it gives us this ability to connect to people with that brainwave. Have you ever walked into a room, and this would be really true in the police, who I worked with at the Olympics. I love the police.
Yeah.
They were awesome.
I was stuck in Melbourne. I didn't get to the Olympics. I just joined the AFP, and unfortunately I didn't get the trip.
But those guys were the firefighters and the police were my favorite, because guess what? They could actually get those brainwaves. They're trained to get in those brainwaves, and they could see all the time what was going on in the venue. They could take on, instantly see. And I just love spending time with them because they train their brain, maybe without knowing, but they train their brain how to get into that. Ask yourself, anybody in the audience, ask yourself, where do you do your best imagining? And most people will say, the shower. And so I say, okay, let's build a whole bank of showers at work. And the real HR people say, no. So COVID's helping us with that.
There you go. The showers aren't just for the people that use the gym or cycle into work, are they? They should be like, let's go and do a brainstorming session and all get in the shower. Yeah. I love that. And you're right, like with the and we'll get to Ricardo's question in a moment, but I recall in the police, I had no idea about neuroscience and all that sort of thing, but you train your attention, particularly when I was a bodyguard for the Prime Minister, you just learn to switch on, switch off, and being able to look at your areas of responsibility, because I know someone else is looking at the right side, I can look at the left side, you're actually splitting up. But the problem is, for a lot of us, we don't actually, we're being dragged all over the place. But I've been doing mindfulness meditation now for the last couple of years, and that's been the most powerful learning experience and development for me, in terms of being able to just be calm, relaxed, be more aware, and just not trigger and just really immerse myself into learning. So it's quietening the brain to actually go, well, this is what I need to be focusing on right now. I need to look at this. I'm studying neuroscience at the moment. I need to focus on this video or this bit of paper, and then and if my mind starts wandering, I then recognise and then able to bring it back and go and not get frustrated about it. That's what I've found with mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah, I'm going to tell a story because I love this story. He just reminded me of the Prime Minister being his. So, 1996, I was working for the Olympics at that time, and I got my CEO at the time had this ticket. Let's see if I can tell this story fast. Yep. Your brains are going to have to relax to hear how fast I'm going to talk. So he had a ticket to go see Bill Clinton and Hillary and John Howard, and he didn't want to use it. And I thought, actually, I want to see my U.S. president. At the time, he wasn't that popular, and I thought, I want to go and see it. And it was so fascinating with brainwaves through the crowd, and the wisdom of the crowds is extraordinary. And that's a book title that I recommend everybody read by James Siraki. But listen to my brain; it's everywhere. But when I went into the audience, I thought, oh yeah, Bill Clinton. I want to see the U.S. president. But the height of the collection as he came into the crowd was extraordinary. And I got to. I know this is going to sound silly, but I got to actually hold his face like this. And it was extraordinary energy because the guy knows how to get his brainwaves there. And not only that, related to you, Garry, is a couple of people have asked, what I was like, my brother-in-law was a Secret Service person. I said, how could they let you? And those Secret Service people are trained, guess what? In mindfulness. And in that mindfulness, they can actually see they're scanning faces. And Paul Ekman, for any of those you who are interested in training yourself on how to read faces, they can see the micro expressions of somebody that's going to get up to trouble. And obviously, I call it the Monica. Sorry, Monica. Micro expression you saw on my face. Anyway.
Oh, that's a great story, and yeah, look, we could talk for hours, no doubt. But I want to get to these questions. Realmy's going to pop them up on the screen, and we might leave Ricardo's question towards the end. But yeah, there's one there from Phil.
Let's see, where's Phil's? I can't. Let's see if I don't know. What do you think? Remote learning has been unintelligent. But good and bad. Watching my son. Horrible. Watching my own learning where I can connect to people all over the world. Fantastic, as long as I can have dialogue and it's not downloads. Because downloads you can just read or walk or when you're on the treadmill. But communicating to other people all over the world has been phenomenal. But then you communicate for half an hour and you go put your feet on the ground and feel the ground. You go do some breathing exercises. You go do some mindful. Then come back and communicate to people all over the world. So that's my answer.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Thanks, Phil. Great question. Alison.
Fatigue impacting leaders and employees. Been along. What advice and practical tips would you give individuals? You have got to sleep. The number one thing for us to live, well, you guys tell me, oxygen, breathing exercise, it's pranayama. Again, I study yoga as one of the ancient arts and learn breathing exercises. Our ancient people had 100 different breathing exercises to get oxygen. Second, water. We know that. Drink water. Not too much, but drink water. Third is learn to sleep. That means all the things that your grandmother said. Remember, they didn't have lights. They certainly didn't have this. We've got to get sleep. We've got to get down to that delta brainwave a couple of times in order for us to regenerate those growth hormones. And that, without doing that, it causes our brains to wither in terms of the nerve cells. It causes our skin to wither. We're just not correcting mistakes. And so the learning to sleep is essential. And a lot of that comes from mindfulness. And I often say mindlessness because we don't need, I could have a lot more noise. You don't want to go in here by yourself,
Good one. Our synapses don't get pruned overnight. We get our fun in the garden. And then if we don't sleep, our brain can't do its work, can it?
Exactly. And people say, when you hear in the workplace, oh, I get by with 3 or 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
I can tell you that they're just as incapacitated as you might as well have gone and smoked marijuana all night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nah, they can't.
Right.
Not in this age. Not in this age.
No, that's right. What do we got now? Alexandra, education in humanitarian context, what would be the key competencies to teach besides helping the young finish school and high school?
Put it up, Realmy. If she's there, put it up on the framework.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, there you go. Like, that's why I love this framework. I love this framework because those competencies are ancient competencies. And you can use what I like the framework is, because we're so fascinated with the brain and what happens to the brain when we experience curiosity or communication or generosity, God forbid, you can actually understand how to develop those. And that's what we've forgotten in our kids. We're so busy getting them to memorize and quote all these quotes that, we forget the basics of our education, which came in communities back in our cave days. We taught this stuff. We haven't taught this stuff. We don't know how to develop these, and this is essential.
Thank you, Katharine. I think we might have one or two more questions there, Realmy. Is training to qualifications versus inquisitive wisdom the crux of teaching bias?
Yes!
Now, I think that's a yes.
How many competency drills that all the teachers have to go through, and how much, and whether you're measured at 5 or 4 or 3 on those competency scales. Don't get me started.
I know. And then how many PowerPoints you have to put up to actually just tell everyone what's going on. And there's a second part there, is skilling by XPs to Foxtel. Is it like Foxtel is to the world of learning? I think that's what it says.
Yeah, it's a Foxtel to learn. It's a skilling of learning experience programs, I think, is what that means. If that's what that means, learning experience, the experience is critical, but the experience online, it's only so good. The learning from the Outward Bound experience. We used to go on Outward Bound with the first year uni students. Oh my God, they learned so much from that and each other. Our nature is teaching us all the time. We just cannot see it. Our technology, it's okay for connecting, but the nature is teaching us. Those stars are teaching us all the time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kate. And great question, Graham. I hope we answered that for you. And then I think just the final one was from Ricardo, asked about the i4 platform. Yeah, there we go, the i4 Neuroleader platform. Do you want to tell everybody what the i4 Neuroleader platform is?
I definitely feel like I'm in an advertisement, but I totally support this. So let's see, Rami, I'm not sure I would. Yeah, I'll go ahead, Garry.
Yeah, I can jump in. So it's the assessment that we talked about briefly earlier in the session, and also an online learning platform as well. I know we've been talking a lot about online learning, and this is a really fantastic way to get that understanding of yourself, tap into the brain, everything we've been talking about, the ancient wisdom that Katharine talked about. It's all there on the i4 Neuroleader platform, the model and methodology. And if you jump on the website for the About My Brain, you can read all about it, you can find all about it, and it's fantastic. Katharine, any closing wisdom bomb? What's the wisdom bomb you want everybody to take away? If you had a couple of things you want to share before you go, and then we'll close out.
Go, now that COVID's coming to an end, go connect to people. Have well, maybe not coffee, but mineral water. Go connect to people. Go connect to people. Put your feet on the ground. Smell the roses. Listen to amazing music. Not that crazy rock music that makes your brain go into really, really beta brainwaves, but the music of Beethoven. I know, boring, but Beethoven connects you to those brainwaves. Sound connects you to those brainwaves. Do the things that our grandmothers taught us.
Love that. Well, thanks, Katharine. You've been an amazing guest. Really, really fascinating to get into your head. You can take a break now. Actually, no, you've got to go and lecture at a university. So maybe this will ramp you up for that. Go have your mineral water. Thank you. You've been amazing. Really nice to sit and chat with you for an hour. And I know everybody would have really enjoyed your session, and it's really given us all something to take away and think about.
Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate it. I learn in dialogue. I also learn because things channel through me, because I've got sometimes a really slow mind, and I allow stuff. It's the beginner's mind, not the expert's mind. It's the beginner's mind.
Yeah.
Critical for us. Critical. I don't know. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I don't know yet. Thanks, Katharine. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channels and jump onto our website if you want to learn more about the i4 Neuroleader platform. It's been a great session. Have a fantastic day, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch you next time.
Oh, thanks, Garry. So fun.
Thank you, Garry, and thank you, Katharine. What a fascinating conversation. I hope everyone has taken something away from today's discussion. Before you go, remember that if you're a coach, consultant, or leadership professional, you can take a look at our online certification accredited by ICF and CPD. This program will equip you with ideas, processes, and tools and teaching resources to conduct memorable brain-based programs as well as neurocoaching interventions. Stay tuned for our next brain-friendly channel session where we will cover the topic of the science of change management with change specialist Samantha Patel. Follow us on any of our social platforms or subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive our updates. And remember that better brains create better leaders and workplaces.